Lesson 2-7, percent of change. Percent of change is the ratio of the change in an amount compared to the original amount. If the new number is greater than the original, the percent of change is a percent of increase. If the new number is less than the original number, the percent of change is a percent decrease. So what we're going to do here is we're going to first figure out is the relationship that's happening between the original and new, is that an increase or a decrease? Okay, so you can always identify that first. So I'm going from the original being $15 and then the new being 35.5. So I can tell right here that this is already going to be a percent increase. Okay. So now I got to figure out what is that percent increase. So in order to do that, I'm going to give you 2 steps that you're going to follow. The first thing, you're going to subtract the original from the new. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to just use this proportion. Okay, it's going to be the change. So really like what you did for step number 1, change over original equals, and because we're working with percents, percents are out of 100. And what we use to represent percent is the letter R, meaning rate. So now that we know the formula, we're going to go ahead and try this out. So our first step, we're going to find the difference between these 2 numbers. So 35.5 minus 15 equals 20.5. So now that I know the change, I'm going to go ahead and put that over the original. And then I'm going to set it equal to R because that is what we're solving for. And it's always over 100. I'm going to do my proportion strategy by doing cross products. So I'm taking 20.5 times 100, and I'm setting it equal to 15R. If I take 20.5 times 100, I actually get 2050. I'm just moving the decimal 2 places to the right, setting it equal to 15R. I'm going to divide both sides by 15, and when I do that, I end up getting R equals 136, and it ends up being your decimal 0.6 repeating, okay? And so when you do that, 136 point, and since it's 6 repeating, we'll go ahead and round to the nearest hundredth. So we'll say 67%. And we already identified at the beginning that this is an increase. So going from the original to the new, that would be 136 and 2/3 or 0.67% increase. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing for the U-try. So once again, we're gonna first figure out original to new. That is a decrease for us. We're still going to use the same exact strategy. Since we know it's a decrease, okay, we can always take, if you want, you can still take new minus the original, but what you're going to get there when you subtract those is negative. That negative just indicates for you that it's going to be a decrease. So if you don't want to work with negatives, which I know a lot of us don't like doing, you could still just take 98.6 minus 64, and when you subtract that, you get 34 6/10. Okay, we already have identified that it's a decrease because once again, if I take 64 minus 98.6, I end up getting a negative number, which is the same thing as showing that it's a decrease. So my step 2, I'm going to find my change, 34 6/10 over the original. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to R over 100. We're going to do our cross products. right, so I have 98.6R equals, and once again, I'm multiplying this by 100, so I'm just gonna move it 2 decimals to the right. Okay, divide by 98.6, and we end up getting that R equals 35, and it becomes a decimal again. So once again, anytime you get a decimal, round to the nearest hundredths unless it tells you to. So this will be 35 and 900ths%, and we already talked about that. It was a decrease. Okay, so now we're gonna figure out, we're gonna work here a little bit to figure out if we know the percent, we're trying to figure out, you know, another value. So it says the total number of passengers on a cruise ship increased 10% from 2007 to 2009. If there are 17 and 2,200 million people in 2009, how many were there in 2007? All right, so for here, you know, we're essentially creating this idea of, we're showing that relationship between that original and new, like we've always done. So what I'm gonna do is first define our variables. X equals number in 2007, okay? And so what we wanna figure out is, this would be, you know, our original amount. But if we're trying to figure out what, what our original amount would be, if we're trying to figure out what our difference would be, we're still going to use this strategy of subtracting the original from the new. So if 2007 is the earliest year, right, that would be your original. So we're going to take X, and since there were 17 and 2,200 million passengers in 2009, that would be considered our new, right? That's the most current. So to represent the numerator, the change, since we don't know how many people are here, we're gonna write an expression, 17 and 2,200 minus X, and it's always over the original. 2007 occurs before 2009, so 2007 is gonna be considered your original. We know that it's an increase of 10% over 100. So instead of us solving for R like we did in the previous problems, we're actually gonna solve for the original. So same strategy. So I have 10X equals, and I'm gonna do 100 times 17 and 2,200 minus X. 10X equals 1,722 minus 100X. I'm gonna go ahead and add 100X because I have that variable on both sides. 110X equals 1,722. I'm gonna divide both sides by 110, and I end up getting that X equals 15 and 6,500ths. But remember, we're talking about passengers, and our passengers are in terms of million, so that would be million passengers. That would be your final answer there. All right. This tuition problem is the exact same sort of problem, so if you need more practice, feel free to use that one. The last problems that we're gonna do are just applying real world percent changes. So one of them would be tax, the other would be discount. So think about when you go to the store and you're taxed, this would be an increase. If you're doing a discount, this is gonna be a percent decrease. So it says Margie is purchasing wire and beads to make jewelry. Her merchandise is $38.67 before tax. The tax is 7.25% of the total sales. What is the final cost? So we're gonna go ahead, and if we know that it's $38.67 before tax, in order to show an increase, we need to multiply this by 7 and 2,500ths%. But when we're doing multiplication with percents, we need to change it into a decimal. So all we're gonna do is move that decimal 2 places to the left. So we get 0.0725. And when we multiply those out, this is gonna give us the total tax that would be charged. So when we multiply these out, we end up getting, and because we're dealing with money, round to the nearest hundredth, we get $2.80, and that's our tax. But because we're trying to figure out the total sales, all right, we now need to take that 280 and we're gonna add it to the original amount. So we have $38.67, and we're gonna add $2.80 to it, okay? So if I'm adding those together, 4, 11, I end up getting $41.47 as my total charge. Another way that you could do this if you'd like, since a tax is a percent increase, think about when you have a percent increase, it is always 100% of the original amount, and then we're gonna add on to that tax. So you could do this all in one step by doing $38.67, and you would multiply it by 1.0725, because this is going to show when we do a percent increase, it would be 107.25, right? That would show that we're taking 100% of this and then adding on that 7.25%. And because we would change it into a decimal, we move it 2 places to the left. So now when you multiply these two numbers together, you end up getting the same step or same amount, but just in one less step. Okay, the next one, picture frame originally cost $14.89. It's on sale for 40% off. What's the discounted price? Okay, so if it's $14.89, we can do the same exact strategy. We'd multiply it by 40%, so 0.4, moving it 2 places to the left. When I multiply those out, once again, don't forget to round to the nearest hundredth, I get about $5.96, and that's my discount on this picture frame. So now my last step would be $14.89 minus $5.96, and we end up getting $8.93. Another strategy, just like we did up here, is you could do $14.89. And because it's a 40% discount, what that means is this $8.93 that we originally got from the first time we did it, this is actually 60% of this amount, okay? Because if we're taking away 40% of it and we get this, this is the same thing as representing 60% of that number, right? Because when we took 40% of the number, we got that amount. But then 60%, so this is 40% of that. The other 60% is what you would have to pay. So you could take $14.89 and we could multiply that by 60%, and we get the exact same number. Once again, one less step, you choose whatever's best for you. The last kind of problem it has the printer, a discount, and a tax. And so we're gonna work this out first. So you have to think about what happens first. When you buy something, are you gonna get a discount and then taxed, or are you gonna get taxed and then discounted, okay? You always get that discount and then they will always tax you. So the first thing we need to figure out is what is the price at the discounted price. So $250, and we're gonna multiply it by 30%. When we multiply that out, we end up getting $76.50. And then we're gonna take $255 and we're gonna subtract that $76.50. When we do that, we end up getting $178.50. So that's the discounted price that you would get. But now we got to add that tax. So 178.50, and we're going to multiply it by, and this is 5.5%. So we're still moving it 2 decimal places to the left. So then that would be 0.055. When we multiply those out, we get about $9.82. And then once we get that, because it's tax, we're going to take the discounted price and we're going to add on that tax. All right, and so once we add on that tax, we end up getting that our total amount is about $188.32. Okay, you could do the same strategy that we did above here if you would like. So once again, $255. Since it's a discount, this $178.50 ends up being 70% of the original. So I could multiply this by 0.7 and I will get $178.50. And then I can take that amount, and because it's a tax, it's going to go up. It's still that 5.5%. So when we do an increase, 1.055, multiply those out and we get the same amount.